In today's episode, we're talking about fear and self-doubt, the two biggest roadblocks that stand between where you are now and the life you actually want to live. Let's be real, fear and doubt show up in a million different ways, and they disguise themselves as logic, as responsibility, as needing to be prepared before you take the next step towards something new. But the truth is, they're just excuses. Very convincing ones, but they're still excuses. So if you're ready to kick your fear to the curb and move confidently toward the life you've only dreamed about living, this episode is for you. Grab your journal and get ready to take some notes. It's time to stop waiting and start living. Welcome to How to Lose the Weight, the podcast for women ready to stop waiting for someday and live life now. I'm your host, Holly Toscanini, and I'm here to help you break free from perfectionism, self-doubt, and the someday mindset. Together, we'll dive into real conversations about self-trust, empowerment, and living authentically. If you're ready to reconnect with your intuition and step into your power, you're in the right place. Let's lose the weight and start living fully right now. Hey friends, welcome back to How to Lose the Weight. I'm Holly Toscanini, and if this is your first time listening, I'm so glad you're here. This podcast is all about helping you stop waiting for the perfect moment, for the perfect body, for the perfect confidence before you start truly living your life. Now, I want to take a moment to think about something. What's the one thing that's been calling to you? The passion, the dream, the goal that you just can't quite let go of. Maybe it's something you've wanted for years but keep pushing aside because, well, life just gets in the way. Maybe it's something that lights you up inside, but every time you think about actually doing it, your mind floods with doubts. What is that thing for you? Maybe it's launching a business. Maybe it's going back to school, or maybe it's writing a book or starting a podcast or moving to a new city, or even just showing up differently in your daily life, more confident, more outspoken, more you. Now, ask yourself, why haven't I done it yet? And if your answer sounds anything like this, I'm not ready, I don't know enough, what if I fail, what will people think? Then congratulations, friend, because you are officially in the exact same place as every single woman who has ever gone after something bigger than their comfort zone. The biggest trick fear plays on us is convincing us that our doubts are facts. If you're anything like the women I work with, you probably have thoughts like, oh, well, I need to have all the answers before I start. Or what if I'm not good enough? Or geez, I don't want to embarrass myself. And let me tell you something. Every single woman who has ever done something worth doing has felt this way at some point. But here's what sets the women who succeed apart from the ones who stay stuck. They don't let fear make their decisions for them. They don't wait until they feel confident before taking action. They take action when they're still scared, because confidence doesn't come before action. It comes because of action. Now let's break this down even further. There are three things you need to understand about fear and doubt. One, they are totally normal. They are not a sign that something is wrong. They're not proof that you aren't ready. They're simply a part of the growing process. Two, they will never fully go away. Sorry to tell you, but if you're waiting for the day when you don't feel scared to start something new, you'll be waiting forever. Fear is part of stepping into the unknown. It's part of expansion. And three, you can rewire your response to these thoughts. See, you don't have to let fear control you. You can learn to work with it, reframe it, and move forward anyway. And that is exactly what we're going to talk about today. In today's episode, I'm going to walk you through why fear and doubt show up when we're trying to make a change. We'll break down the psychology behind it so you understand exactly what's happening in your brain and your body when fear kicks in. Next, I'm going to show you how to reframe fear so it becomes a tool for growth instead of a reason to quit before you even start. And three, we're going to review some practical strategies to build resilience and move forward with confidence, even if you're scared, even if you're unsure, and even if you don't feel completely ready. And by the time we're done, you're going to feel so much more in control of your thoughts, your decisions, and the way you handle fear in your life. I want to start by just sharing a little bit of my own journey with fear, because if there's one thing I want you to take away from this episode, it's this. You're not alone in feeling this way. I used to think that I needed to feel 100% ready before I could take a step toward anything I wanted. So I waited, I researched, I overanalyzed, and I tried to perfect every little detail before actually doing anything. But guess what? That perfect moment, that feeling of being absolutely ready, it never came, because fear and doubt don't go away when you wait. They don't disappear when you gather more research or information. They only fade when you take action despite them. The first time I truly understood this was when I finally stopped waiting and just went for it. And even though I was terrified, and it worked, not because I knew what I was doing, not because I felt 100% confident, but because I took action and I figured it out along the way. And I want that for you too. So if you've been feeling stuck, if you've been holding yourself back because of fear, today is the day all that changes, because you are ready, you are capable, and you do not have to feel fearless to start. So let's dive into this. Let's talk about why fear and doubt show up in the first place. And more importantly, let's talk about how you can stop letting them be the reason you stay stuck. So now that we've sort of set the stage for this conversation, let's really get to the heart of this episode. Understanding why fear and doubt show up and why they feel so real even when they're not. All right, I want you to take a deep breath right now. Seriously, breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth. Because what we're about to talk about isn't just about fear. It's how we can work with fear instead of letting it control us. We're going to break it down into 3 key areas. 1, why fear exists and how it's actually trying to help you. 2, the most common fears that hold people back and how to spot them in yourself. And 3, how self-doubt sneaks in and convinces you that you're not enough. And I promise you, by the end, you're going to feel so much more aware of what's happening in your mind when fear and doubt creep in. And once you recognize it, you can take back control. So here's something that might surprise you. Your brain is not designed to make you happy. It's designed to keep you safe and alive. That means anytime you step out of your comfort zone, whether it's trying something new or putting yourself out there, or even just, imagining a bigger life for yourself, your brain freaks out a little bit. It says, whoa, this is unfamiliar. This could be dangerous. Abort mission. That's fear doing its job. And its job is survival, not growth. See, way back in the caveman days, this was incredibly useful because if something was unfamiliar, like the deep, dark recesses of an unknown cave or a rustling in the bushes, fear kicked in to keep us alive. But the problem with that is we're not cavemen anymore. Well, not most of us. And there aren't lions hiding behind every corner. Our brains just haven't caught up with this yet. So now, instead of triggering fear over real danger, our brain sounds the alarm over things like speaking in public, posting your opinion on social media, starting a new business, asking somebody out on a date, or reinventing yourselves at 40, 50, or beyond. But none of these things are actually dangerous. But to your brain, they feel just as risky as being chased by that lion. That's why fear feels so real, because your body actually reacts to these situations as if you're in physical danger. You know the feeling. Your heart races, your palms get sweaty, your thoughts start to spiral. But in these situations, the reality is that fear isn't a warning sign to stop. It's a sign that you're about to grow. So now that we understand what fear is trying to do, let's talk a little bit about the biggest fears that hold us back from going after what we truly want. Because fear isn't always obvious. Sometimes when it shows up in a way that feels completely logical. So I want to break down what I see as our 3 biggest fears, at least in most of the women that I work with. So here it is. The most common fear I see in women who are ready for something more, but just can't seem to take the leap are fear of failure. What if I try and I fail? What if I embarrass myself? Or what if people see me fail? But I'm going to ask you to reframe those thoughts. Because what if failure is just a stepping stone? And what if failure is just proof you tried? And what if the only way to succeed at anything is to fail miserably at it first? Think about this. Every woman who has ever accomplished anything great has failed, probably a lot. Because failure isn't the opposite of success. It's the pathway to success. But because we've been conditioned to see failure as a reflection of our worth, we avoid it at all costs. Instead of seeing failure as a lesson, we see it as proof that we're just not good enough. But the truth, the only true failure is never trying at all. All right, if failure is the number one fear that stops women from chasing their dreams, the fear of what others think is what gets a close second. You might hear thoughts like, what will my friends think if I start all over? People are going to judge me if I change my career at this age. Or gosh, I don't want to look like an idiot. But let me ask you something. When was the last time you judged someone for trying something new? When was the last time you criticized someone for following their dreams? Probably never, right? Because we're all too busy dealing with our own insecurities to focus on somebody else's. So let's just say this out loud. People are not thinking about you as much as you think they are. And the ones who do judge, they're not the ones living your life, right? Okay, the third most popular fear, and this one surprises a lot of people, but it's real. It's the fear of success, because success equals change. And if you actually go after what you want and get it, then what? People will expect more from you maybe. Or, I don't know, will you be able to maintain it? Or will your relationships change because of your success? I see this fear show up all the time in women who say they want something but keep self-sabotaging. Because of success means stepping into a version of yourself that you don't fully recognize yet, that can feel just as scary as failure. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about self-doubt because this is where fear gets really sneaky. Fear is loud, it's obvious, but doubt whispers. And it sounds completely reasonable. It says, maybe this just isn't the right time. Or, I should probably get more experience first. Or, maybe this just isn't meant for me. And because these thoughts feel logical, we believe them. But here's what I want you to know. Doubt is not fact. Doubt is fear in disguise. It's the little voice that keeps you playing small because playing small feels safe. But here's the real truth. You do not need more experience. You do not need more time, and you do not need permission. You need to take some action because confidence doesn't come before action. It comes because of action. So from this section, I want you to just kind of take this key takeaway and file it away. Self-doubt only wins if you believe it, and you have the power to change the story. So far we've broken down why fear exists and how self-doubt sneaks in. So now it's time to sort of flip the script because the truth is, fear is not the enemy. In fact, if you learn how to work with it instead of against it, fear can actually become one of your greatest tools for growth. Think about that. Every single time you've leveled up in life, every time you've taken a risk, every time you've stepped into something new, fear was there, and yet you did it anyway. So to me, that's proof that you already know how to move through fear because you've been doing it your whole life. So now, instead of letting fear paralyze you, I'm going to teach you how to use it as fuel. Let's talk about how to shift your perspective on fear so it stops feeling like a roadblock. And then I'm going to teach you the fear reframe technique that will change the way you respond to fear forever. And we're going to learn how to tell the difference between good fear and bad fear. Now, here's something that sort of changed my life when I first heard it. Fear and excitement feel the same in your body. Think about that. When you're scared, what happens? Your heart beats faster, you get that fluttery feeling in your stomach, and your brain kind of goes on high alert. What happens when you're excited? Your heart beats faster, you get that fluttery feeling in your stomach, and your brain goes on high alert. It's the exact same physiological response. The only difference is the story you tell yourself about what you're feeling. If you call it fear, it feels like danger. If you call it excitement, it feels like opportunity. So what if, instead of saying I'm terrified, you said I'm energized, or I'm being stretched in the best way, or this means something amazing is on the other side of this? What if every time fear showed up, you took it as a sign that you were on the right track? That's the first step to reframing fear. Change the meaning you assign to it. Okay, so let's get practical with all this information. I want to introduce you to the fear reframe technique, how to use fear to your advantage. The next time you feel fear creeping in, I want to walk you through this process step by step. First, identify the fear. I mean, literally, write it down, say it out loud. I want you to get specific. Instead of just thinking, I'm scared, name exactly what you're afraid of. For example, I'm afraid to start this business because I might fail. I'm afraid to put myself out there because people might judge me. Or I'm afraid to change careers because I have no idea what's next. Number 2, flip that perspective. Ask yourself, what's the best possible outcome? Instead of focusing on the worst case scenario, actively shift your mind toward what could go right. Like, what if my business is a huge success? What if people love what I create? What if this career change leads me to something even better? Number 3, find the proof. Has there ever been a time in your life when you were scared to do something, but you did it anyway? And did it turn out okay? Most of the time, the answer is yes. You have already faced fear and come out of the other side, so use that as proof that you can do it again. And number 4, take one small action toward the thing that scares you, because the best way to dissolve fear is to move toward it. So if you're scared to start your business, maybe start by registering the domain name for your website. Or if you're afraid of judgment, maybe post one small little thing on your social media account today. Or if you're terrified of a career change, what if you just sent an email to someone in the field that you're interested in? Action breaks fear's grip every single time. Now, okay, let's be real. Not all fear is created equal. So how do you tell the difference between good fear and bad fear? Well, there's fear that's trying to protect you from real danger, and there's fear that's trying to push you into growth. So the next time fear shows up, ask yourself this. Is this fear keeping me safe from actual harm, like running into traffic or touching a hot stove? Or is this fear trying to keep me small, like not applying for a job because you're scared of rejection? If the fear is about physical danger, by all means, listen to it. If the fear is about emotional discomfort, I'm going to ask you to lean into it, because growth can be uncomfortable. And every single time you stretch yourself, every single time you do something you've never done before, fear is going to show up. That doesn't mean stop. It means keep going. Now, I'll never forget the first time I realized my fear wasn't going to go away. There was a time when I thought I had to wait until I felt ready, until I had 100% of every single detail worked out before I could do the big scary things I wanted to do. But you know, that moment of being completely ready, it never came. I kept waiting for the fear to disappear. I kept waiting for confidence to just magically show up. And I kept waiting to feel like I was good enough to try. And then one day I decided, what if I just did it anyway? So I took one small step, and then another. And then I realized something powerful. Fear doesn't leave. But fear also doesn't win unless you let it. And once I understood that, fear stopped feeling like a reason to stop. It started feeling like a reason to move forward. Because if I was scared, it meant I was growing. If I was scared, it meant I was stepping into something bigger. And if I was scared, it meant I was on the right path. And now, fear still shows up, but I recognize it and I do everything possible to prevent it from controlling me. And if you follow these steps, it won't control you either. Remember, fear and excitement feel the same way in your body. It's all about how you label that fear. And you can use the fear reframe technique to shift your perspective and take action anyway. And then not all fear is bad. If it's about emotional discomfort, it's probably a sign you should move forward. And finally, and I think almost most importantly, you do not need confidence before you start. You gain confidence by taking action. Now that you understand how to reframe your fear, we're going to talk about how to build resilience so fear and doubt don't stop you from moving forward. Because so far we've learned why fear and doubt exist and then how to reframe them as tools for growth. So now it's time to get into the part that changes everything: building inner resilience. Because here's the thing: fear isn't really the problem. Doubt isn't even really the problem. The problem is that most of us have been taught how to handle fear and doubt in ways that moves us forward. We just haven't learned how to do that. We think confidence is something women are born with, and we think resilience is something only strong women have. But let me tell you the truth. Resilience, like confidence, is a skill. And like any skill, it can be learned, built, and strengthened, starting right now. I'm about to give you practical, no fluff, real life strategies to help you stop letting fear and doubt control your decisions, create a mental and emotional foundation strong enough to withstand setbacks, and how to move forward with unshakable confidence even when life gets tough. I promise you by the end of this episode, you will know exactly what to do the next time fear, doubt, or uncertainty try to hold you back. I want to talk you through a time when I remember I was just starting out as a coach. I was in a training session and I was working with my trainee coach, and I was asking them to tell me about their fear, just to talk me through what's the worst thing that could happen. And my mentor immediately stopped me and freaked out a little. And so we never want to take our clients down that path because it's just too scary and overwhelming. But I beg to differ. I think this question works because most of us let fear control us because we avoid thinking about the worst case scenario. Because here's the secret. The actual worst case scenario is almost never as bad as we imagine. And the next time fear is holding you back, ask yourself, what is the worst that could happen? And I'm serious, write it down, get really specific. Write down, what would you do if that happened? I mean, if those things you're afraid of actually took place, what would you do? And could you survive it? 99% of the time, the answer is yes. All right, so I'm going to give you an example. Let's say you're thinking about switching careers, but fear is stopping you. And you ask yourself, what's the worst that could happen? Well, you might write down, I could struggle financially while I transition. You could even write, I will go broke. Well, what would you do if that happened? Well, you might write down, I'd cut back on expenses. Maybe I could get a temporary side job, or maybe I've got a support system I could lean on. And then ask yourself, could I survive that? And the answer is yes. And just like that, fear loses its grip. Now, I want to talk about how to rewrite some of those limiting beliefs, because this next exercise works because most of our fear-based thinking comes from those limiting beliefs, those old mental scripts that we've absorbed over time, that we keep running through our minds over and over again. These thoughts feel true, but they're not. So what we're going to do is we're going to catch that fear or that belief in the moment. Next, we're going to challenge it. And 3, we're going to replace it with something even more empowering. So let's start with an example. Let's start with the belief that I'm too old to start over. Reframe that belief to, I bring wisdom and life experience that make me uniquely qualified to succeed. Or another example could be, I'm not smart enough to do this. You could reframe that to, I can learn anything I need to know and I've done hard things before. Or example number 3, what if I fail? What if you reframed that to, every successful woman has failed. It's part of the process. See, the goal isn't to never have negative thoughts. The goal is to rewrite them before they start to control you. Now, one of the most powerful tools you can use to build resilience and take control of your thoughts is the self-coaching framework. I've talked about this in previous episodes, but I'm going to run through it again because I really feel like this is a critical skill to start practicing. Because most of the time, when we feel stuck in fear or doubt, we assume it's just the way things are. But when you break it down, you realize that your thoughts create your feelings, and your feelings drive your actions and then shape your results. So let's walk through how to coach yourself through fear using this framework. Now for this first part, this first step, we're kind of go through the model of where you are now. So let's take a situation that's causing you stress or doubt or fear, and let's plug it into this model. I'll go through it kind of slowly, so stick with me. So the first thing we're going to do is just look at what's happening. Where we are now, what's the circumstance? And the circumstance is really just the neutral facts of the situation that are outside of your control. Next, we're going to go through our thoughts. Just what thoughts are being downloaded as we go through the circumstance. This is really the story our mind is telling us about what's happening about this circumstance. Next is the feelings or emotions or physical sensations that are a result of the thoughts we're thinking. And then the actions. what we do or don't do because of how we're feeling. Finally, the result. What is the outcome that those actions created? So we start with our circumstance, which is our neutral facts of the situation outside our control. Next, the thought download, the thoughts that our mind is telling us about what's going on. Next, our feelings, the way those thoughts are making us feel. Then the actions, what are we doing because of those feelings? And finally, the results. What are the results of the actions that we took or didn't take? So let's go through an example. Let's use the fear of starting a business. So the circumstance is, I want to start a coaching business, but I haven't yet. The thoughts could be, I don't know enough, and other people are a lot more qualified. That might make us feel self-doubt, anxiety, or maybe we start feeling like we have imposter syndrome. Now, because our thoughts created these feelings, the actions we take or don't take might be we procrastinate. Maybe we overthink, or maybe we just don't do anything. And the result of the procrastination, overthinking, and doing nothing is that we stay stuck and we never move forward. Sound familiar? This is what happens when fear and doubt are running the show. So next, let's take this exact same model, but it's going to be more intentional. So this is the how you want to think, feel, or act model. So we're going to rewrite this situation in a way that empowers us. Again, we're going to call this the way we want to think, feel, and act. So again, let's start with the circumstance. I mean, nothing's really changed, right? The neutral fact hasn't changed. You still want to start a coaching business. But what if you had new thoughts about that circumstance? What if you now thought, I have valuable experience and I can learn what I need along the way? Now with those new thoughts, how does that make you feel? Maybe you feeling more confident, more determined, or maybe more motivated. And when you're feeling confident, confident, determined, and motivated, the action is you start actually taking some steps forward. Maybe you sign up for a course. Maybe you reach out to a coach or a mentor. Maybe you just start writing some ideas down. All of those things are perfect. And the result of those actions is, I don't know, maybe you actually start the business, gain some experience, and grow. You see the difference? The circumstance didn't change. You still want to start a business as a coach, but when you change your thoughts about that circumstance, your results change. This is how you train your brain to start becoming more resilient. And instead of being controlled by your thoughts, once you recognize them, you can take control of them. Got it? Circumstance, thoughts, feelings, action, results. It all goes together. The bottom line here is the thoughts we have eventually determine our results. So if we can change our thoughts, we can actually change our results. Now I want to talk about the tiny wins method. This works because most people never start because they feel overwhelmed. Now the key is to make progress so small that your brain can't resist doing it. So you want to write a book? Maybe commit to writing for 5 minutes a day. You want to get a little bit more exercise? Maybe commit to just a 10-minute walk. You want to start a business? Maybe you just start by brainstorming 3 potential ideas. Now, why does this work? Because tiny wins build momentum, and momentum builds confidence, and confidence builds resilience. So you see, every single tiny step forward is proof that you can keep going. So remember, fear isn't the problem. How you respond to it is. And you need to use the what's the worst that could happen method to help put fear in perspective. Then rewrite those limiting beliefs in real time before they take root. You could use the self-coaching framework to shift your thoughts and change your results. And leverage those tiny wins to create momentum and build confidence. Because you don't need confidence before you start. You gain confidence by taking action. Because once you trust yourself to handle fear and doubt and failure, there is nothing that can stop you. Now, if you've made it this far, I hope you're starting to see something really important. Fear and doubt don't have to be the things that hold you back. They don't have to be the reason you stay stuck. And they don't have to be the reason you keep waiting for the right time. Because here's the truth. The right time is right now. The version of you that you've been waiting to become, she's already in you. You just have to start acting like her. All right, so I want to do a recap of what we covered today because I want you to walk away feeling empowered, equipped, and ready to take action. In this episode, we learned that fear and doubt are normal. You're not broken for feeling them. They're part of growth, and they don't mean you're not capable. They simply mean you're human. Number 2, you have the power to reframe fear. Fear and excitement feel the same way in your body. The only difference is the story you tell yourself about what you're feeling. And when fear shows up, try calling it excitement. Try seeing it as a sign that you're on the right track. 3, the way you think about fear determines how much power it has over you. When you use the fear reframe technique, you take control back from fear. Instead of thinking, what if I fail? Ask yourself, what if this works? Instead of thinking, what if people judge me? Ask yourself, what if people support and celebrate me? Number 4, resilience, like confidence, is a skill. You can build it. The more you practice self-coaching, rewriting limiting beliefs, and taking small intentional actions, the more you prove to yourself that you can handle anything that comes your way. And number 5, you don't need confidence to start. You don't need to wait until you feel ready. Confidence comes after action. The more you do something, the more natural it becomes. And this is why I say stop waiting and start living. You do not have to wait for the perfect moment. You do not have to wait until fear disappears, and you do not have to wait until you have it all figured out. You just have to take the next small step. So here's what I want you to do this week. I want you to think about something you've been afraid to go after, something that keeps calling you, but you've been letting fear or doubt hold you back. Then I want you to try the self-coaching framework to work through it. This starts by identifying the circumstance, which is really just the neutral fact of what it is that you want. Then write down the thoughts that you have about that. Notice the feelings those thoughts are creating. And then ask yourself, what actions do I take or not take because of those feelings? And what results am I getting because of these actions? And then flip it. What new thought would help you feel more empowered? What feeling would that then create? And when you feel that new wonderful feeling, what different action might you take because of the way you feel? And finally, what result would that new action give you? This is how you start rewiring your mind to work for you and not against you. And then take one small action, just one. It doesn't have to be big, but it does have to be intentional, on purpose. The only way to prove to yourself that you're stronger than your fear is to act in spite of it. All right, if today's episode resonated with you, if you're ready to step into self-trust and confidence, but you know you need a little more guidance, I got something for you. I've created a free ebook called Activate Your Intuition, 3 Steps to Reclaiming Inner Wisdom, and I want you to have it. This guide will help you tune into your intuition so you stop second-guessing yourself. It'll help you get clarity on the decisions that are right for you, and it will help you start trusting yourself in ways that feel effortless and aligned. You can download it in the show notes or on my website at hollytoscanini.com. Because self-trust is the foundation of everything we talked about today. When you trust yourself, you can handle fear, you can move through doubt, you can take action with confidence even when things feel uncertain. And that's what I want for you. So if today's episode spoke to you, I'd love for you to subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode, or leave a review because your feedback helps this podcast reach more women who need it. Or you could share this episode with a friend who needs a little push to stop waiting and start living. And if you want to continue this conversation, you can find me over on Instagram at Holly Toscanini or send me a message. I'd love to hear your insights and seeing what you're working through. So friends, if you take this one thing from today, let it be this. You are capable of so much more than you think. You are already strong enough to handle the fear. You do not need to have all the answers to take the first step. The next version of you is waiting. Your dream is waiting, and your confidence is waiting. And it's time to stop waiting and start living. So get out there, take the first step, activate some intuition, smash through fear, and stay inspired to stop waiting and start living. I'm cheering you on every single step of the way. Signing off on How to Lose the Weight. Until next time, bye for now. Thank you for tuning in to How to Lose the Weight. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe so you never miss a conversation. And if you found value in this episode, I'd love it if you could leave a review. It really helps the show reach more women like you who are ready to step into their power. For more insights and inspiration, follow me on Instagram at Holly Toscanini or visit hollytoscanini.com. Until next time, remember, stop waiting and start living.